Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Cold Red. I'm Ray Carr, and with me always is Jim Fitzgerald, aka Fitz. Fitz, how are you tonight?
I'm okay, and I don't usually like these special episodes, Ray, that we have instead of our weekly ones because it means something bad usually happened. It means someone died, blown up, or they came close to meeting their maker. And that's exactly what happened Saturday night in terms of yet another attempted suicide of
Assassination.
correction. Another attempted suicide on the part of the guy with the guns,
Correct.
suicide by cop. But of course, what I meant to say is an attempted assassination of the president and many of his cabinet members, and that's a little bit of a first. Usually, it's just been the president in these other attempts in recent past. Now it's trying to take out as many cabinet members as possible. But then, of course, it was a target-rich environment. So that's what we're here to talk about. Ray, any observations on your part up front?
You know, Jim, when I looked at the manifesto, I know this is your bailiwick here, but the document read less like a coherent political argument and was more like a pre-attack justification narrative. We usually see things like this when people are preparing for targeted violence. You know, when I look at how he framed it, it wasn't as though as it was making a choice, it was more of a moral obligation. Like he said, I'm no longer going to permit this. I don't see anyone else picking up the slack. He believed that he had the personal authority to correct the preconceived injustice that he thought was happening. And I know, as you know, in behavioral threat assessment, this shifts it from a grievance to moral permission for him to commit violence. What's your initial take on it?
Well, I find it interesting that he gave himself a name, Friendly Federal Assassin, perhaps FFA for short. He wasn't all that friendly because he was looking to take out a bunch of different people. I almost read this as, and I understand what you're saying, a pre-attack sort of a tactical plan. I also saw it as almost like a dissertation or thesis defense. Objection, rebuttal, objection, rebuttal. In other words, and he's asking and answering his own questions, which the Unabomber did a little bit of that, not in his manifesto, although in some implicit ways he did, but in the many writings that we found in his cabin afterwards, in which he was justifying some of his aberrant behavior. But of course, that was never meant to be read by anyone. Those writings were just for Kaczynski. Here we have this guy putting this out to multiple family members, minutes before he actually took off down the stairs with a shotgun in hand, several handguns, and numerous knives. So really, really bizarre stuff. I mean, again, repeating a lot of Democrat politicians, party line statements and incorporating them into his rationale. Really, no specifics. I mean, calling Trump names. Okay, when is that? I knew nothing really about policy. I find though he obviously did some studying. He uses, some of the jargon of law enforcement correctly in terms of, body armor. A lot of people say bulletproof vest. We know that's not the term used. Ballistic vest, body armor is the proper term. Center mass, he knew about when you hit a target, you want to aim for that center mass. That's the best way to neutralize it using buckshot rather than slugs to minimize casualties. So he did some homework in that regard. Then, of course, he actually evaluates the Secret Service level of security going in. You can discuss this a bit, Ray, in terms of your bailiwick, but event protection and security perimeters, inner circle, medium circle, outer circle. And he was really commenting on the outer circle and how easy it was to get through there. Luckily, that's where he got stopped. And I know we can criticize perhaps the pre-event planning to some degree here, but at least he was stopped a floor above and certainly a good distance away from his targets.
You know, Jim, when we talk about these mass killings that we see, we talk about the pathway to violence. And we starts out with a grievance, moves into to an ideation, which he saw it as violence, and he was going to conduct that. Then a lot of research and planning. And if you look at the document and his research and planning, he prioritized his targets. He had the hierarchy from the president all the way down to his cabinet. He talked about the rules of engagement. He talked about the selection of his weapons and reasoning and the use of ammunition. In other words, he says, I'm going to use buckshot because I don't want collateral damage here. I only want the people intended to get targeted to be hurt. And he was aware of the security gaps. Now, when you look at him obtaining a room, before we even get to the room, he takes 2 trains from California, knowing that if I take these trains, they're not as going to pay attention as much as what I'm carrying on. I'm able to conceal the weapons on the train, which is something that's another issue way over this thing. But when he stayed at the venue, it removed barriers like checkpoints at the entry and allowed him low profile movement with inside that environment. Okay, he was able to function as a legitimate guest, and that really helped him, and it enabled him to kind of do reconnaissance and look at some of the security gaps and time this. And when people say, "Well, geez, he was really fast running through there," well, he practiced this too. When you look about the planning, he practiced, went over in his mind when he went to ranges and he practiced firing guns. The whole thing about this is that I think the security that was set up at this facility, I don't think that the Secret Service did a very good job in maintaining the security of this facility. I don't think they could. They if you think about it, if we could have taken, say, 10 Iranians and put them in that building with explosives, because they're not checking. You know how it is. Remember the Las Vegas shooting, how many weapons he brought and how much ammunition he brought up into 2 rooms, if you remember that. So imagine being right above there and setting up bombs or explosives and timing them. You don't even need to be in a building. You can be far away from the building and set it off. I mean, so there's a lot of things. However, and I said this in previous interviews, the security that was set up for this incident, I think, worked because he never made it into the ballroom. So for what good it is, it worked, but they were extremely lucky this time. And I think you need a spot that stands alone, just like the place that they're building. It's a standalone that has different rings of security around it. I think that's really the important thing here. They were very lucky that nobody was hurt. There was one Secret Service agent, a uniformed agent, that was shot in the chest. His ballistic vest saved his life. And the individual, the only reason why they caught him is because he tripped and fell. And he went down and they jumped on top of him. So there's a lot of, as they say, as we say, when we're done with these things, there's going to be a hot wash and a lot of things that are going to need to be improved here.
And just finishing up some things here. It's interesting there are only 2 names mentioned, 2 proper nouns, if you will, in his. I'm not going to call it a manifesto. I'll just call it his pre-offense diatribe here. He mentions Julius Caesar's name and just a historical reference, and he mentions the FBI director's name, Patel, but only in the context he was not going to shoot him. And it's not 100% clear why he didn't want to take him out. He is part of the cabinet, if you will, of this president. And we just decided that it wasn't worth trying to take him out, whether because he happened to be of Indian American background or because he didn't want to harm law enforcement, as he said, but never mentions Trump's name. I don't think he ever uses the word president within, but of course accuses people of raping and murdering, being a pedophile. I mean, he can go all through Congress and in much of the media and find people that fit those descriptions. So all over the place, strange. And just a few things. I really think, Ray, we are seeing an ideologically violent subculture that's now living within us. It's not necessarily Gen X or some other generation that I'm pointing to here, but these people have been brainwashed from early on. This guy's a teacher. There's no doubt he's brainwashing others, even if it's more of a indirect method. I have no doubt there's self-loathing on his part, psychological issues. You mentioned a train ride. What was it? 24, 36 hours to get from California, first stop Chicago, then Washington. All that time you're carrying these weapons in a bag, someone next to you. He even apologized to people he was traveling next to and baggage handlers because, they could have been involved in this. And your brain doesn't kick in, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Just put this screed out if you want and just don't threaten to kill anybody. And you may get some followers there. So this guy was, again, off the chart. And I think his truest words were the very end where he said, I want to cry for all the things I wanted to do and never will, for all the people who trust us betrays. Then the very end is, can't really recommend it. Stay in school, kids. Here's what Fitz will add, but stay away from teachers like this guy.
Absolutely, Jim. Jim, let's close this out. I hope people take this and it's something that we need to change. We need to change the rhetoric. We need to be able to solve problems other than through violence. I don't know what we're doing or why we're doing what we're doing, but it doesn't solve anything. Violence never solves anything. Violence begets violence.
And lately, Ray, it's all coming from one direction, it seems, certainly of
It
the
is.
political or ideological orientation. And we have late night comics and other people who are only fomenting it. And I use the word comics lightly here, but let's hope we can find a direction away from this type of behavior. Folks, that's our brief summary here of I'm losing count, Ray, I think the third assassination attempt of President Trump. And
let me hit one more thing, Jim, that I want to say that I thought was really, really in poor taste. And that was a Jimmy Kimmel remark.
Well, I was referring to him, yeah.
Yeah. With that, I mean, I really want to talk just briefly about that Jimmy Kimmel remark where he said, to the first lady, you look so beautiful tonight, as though someone that is grieving the loss of their husband or something to that fashion.
You'll make a great grieving widow.
Correct.
A beautiful grieving widow.
I just thought it was
2 nights before this happened.
It's horrible.
And last night he couldn't even apologize. He made like other jokes connected with it. I just, yeah.
Makes me sick.
He is part of the problem. I'm all for First Amendment, free speech. I get it. But you know what? ABC is a network. FCC, our tax money goes into supporting the broadcast networks along with NBC, CBS. Maybe something should be done.
I agree with that.
We'll see. All right. On that note, folks, again, thanks for listening to this episode of Cold Red, special episode. And like us, subscribe to us, and check out our website, coldredpodcast.com. Thanks to our producers, Matt McLaughlin, Matt Robinson, music director Rick Schilling, and everyone. We'll see you next time on Cold Red.